Hey there, Huskies and friends. How are you doing? How are we feeling? Okay. I know what you're here for. I know you've been just as excited as me for part 2 to drop, and you've been waiting all week. But guess what? Wait no more. So as we said last week, we're talking community food, and we did the communal lunch. And this week, we're talking about the Good Food Market. So we had a great chat with Torsten, who is the chief director of this initiative. And you know, enough of me. Let's listen. So, hi Huskies and friends. Today we are joined by a very special guest. I know I've mentioned the Good Food Market countless times. And so now you don't get to just hear me talk about it, but you get to hear the person who organizes and makes it happen every week. Even it's just so many moving parts, I'm sure, and they're here to tell us all about it. So welcome, Torsten.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be back.
Awesome. So first of all, tell us who you are and what your role is here, and then tell us in a nutshell what is the Good Food Market.
Sure, yeah. So I'm Torsten, and I'm basically the Good Food Coordinator here at Student Life. So my job is basically running programs that support student food security on campus. So that includes the Good Food Market and a supper club as well.
Okay, awesome. So tell us more about the Good Food Market. Like, what are all the moving parts? What's happening at the Good Food Market? What are we selling? What are we buying?
Sure, yeah. So the Good Food Market, we're actually a nonprofit model. So we're a nonprofit market that is part of Food Share Toronto's bigger umbrella of good food markets across the city. And the purpose of the program is to be able to sell affordable fruits and vegetables to our community of students and other folks, because we're open to the entire community every week, every Thursday. And so part of that nonprofit model, of course, is keeping our prices low, lower than you'll see at most grocery stores. Even no frills these days is getting pretty expensive. So we find we're lower than even no frills these days. Also, part of our mandate is creating that community around food, being a little bit of a hub where students can drop by. You know, even if folks aren't necessarily buying, we love to see familiar faces every week. So as far as our pricing and what we offer, so fruits, it can be anything from your standard apples, bananas, that kind of thing, to lately we've been offering grapes, for example, this week. So at tomorrow's market, we're going to be offering grapes for $4 a bag, for example. Whereas at No Frills, last time I checked, it was quite a bit higher than that, around I think $7 or $8 was the cheapest, so quite a difference there. And then an array of veggies from your broccoli and cauliflower, standard carrots and potatoes. Sometimes we'll do, for example, if the price of okra is down, we'll bring in bags of okra. Whatever we can get, we will bring in, and it's pretty much it.
And you know what I also really love? You guys have an email list.
Yeah, we do.
I love that, because then you get to pre-order, and because sometimes I'll get out from class and by the time I come, the stuff I want, they're all gone because I didn't remember to send my email. But the prices that you get on the list, what you see is what you're gonna get. So you're not calculating and then there's all this added tax, all of that's already done. So I really appreciate that. Can you tell me more though about why you guys decided to start that email list?
Yeah, so the reasons, actually, you pretty much nailed it, is students can't always come during our busiest time. We do open at around 11 a.m., so that's when our rush is, from about 11 a.m. until about 12:30 or so. But of course, lots of students are in class during that time, or they're at work, or something that gets in the way of them being there during that peak time, which means that they could miss out on some good stuff. I always bring up the example of berries, like strawberries, blueberries. Those are super popular and sell out fast. Yeah, exactly. So the pre-order is basically an opportunity for folks who have class or work or whatever the case may be during that time to be able to access market products as well. And all they have to do is, we have a QR code actually at our market, or you can send an email at goodfoodmarket@georgebrown.ca, and we will add you to the mailing list. Every week you will get that mailing list, and you can either just browse it or you can send us the pre-order form back, and then we will put together the pre-order for you. But
Yeah, we love that. We do love a pre-order.
Yeah.
So, how did you get involved and start doing this?
Yeah, so my journey has been a little bit of a longer one. I started getting involved actually in 2015 as a placement student. I was in the community worker program myself.
Me too.
Yeah. Community worker program is a great one.
It is.
So I did my first year placement there. And then afterwards, there was an opportunity to stay on as like a summer student employee. So I did that. And then it just kind of went from there. I just really, it kind of snowballed from there. I always really loved working at the market. It always had a special place in my heart as a student staff back then. So the fact that I get to continue to work at the market now that I'm no longer a student is great. So that's how I got involved. And yeah, it's been great. So.
I think that's a beautiful full circle moment, especially as someone who's also part of the community worker program. Like I was explaining to you earlier, I get the opportunity to connect with other people when I come to the Good Food Market. And that connection is so important as a student, because even beyond being a student, those are the connections that will take you through when you get into the field, when you get into the practical aspect of it. It's building community and constantly like connecting and informing. That's so important. So I think that's a great full circle moment. So we love to see it. We love to see it. Why do you do this work?
To me, this work is really important. I feel like it gets more important every year in the world that we're living in right now. Sometimes it feels like more like a mission, honestly, than work, because student food security or insecurity keeps getting worse and worse. COVID especially was a huge turning point for grocery prices, rents, all that stuff just skyrocketed and has never come back down again. So our market is a way, while we don't really occupy a space as like a food bank might, our market is a way for students to be able to come browse a marketplace, pick the produce that they'd like, and then purchase that produce for themselves at prices that are affordable and that aren't seeing that same kind of jump that you're seeing in grocery stores. So I think there's something powerful and empowering about that. And I think this kind of program is more important than ever, especially from like that price perspective and also that convenience perspective. Students are on campus, so, especially more and more students are having to find housing outside of the downtown core, elsewhere in the GTA, or as far as like Brampton, Ajax, that kind of thing. So the commute times are higher than ever as well. Mm-hmm. So having it right here on campus instead of having to worry about figuring that out between classes and commutes and XYZ is, I think, also important. So yeah, just continuing to do that work to try to support student food security is and the reason why.
It's also really important to add that the quality of products that you get at the Good Food Market, it's just as good, if not better, than what you get at the supermarkets. Because sometimes people might say, oh, these prices are really low, and they think, oh, are these stuff good? Da, da, da. But no, it's the premium quality products. And can you tell me more about what you do to ensure that for the students?
Yeah, so the good thing about us as well is that when we order from FoodShare, they will pick up our order. Often it can be like the morning, they're going to the food terminal like the morning of, delivering to us, or the day before. So it's either that day or the day before. So the quality is really fresh. It is really good. I think if you go to, I bring up No Frills because to me that's one of the closest cheaper ones near me, but I mean you could probably say the same about other discount grocery stores. Often I find browsing there you end up with a lot of avocados that are already very mushy, or your bananas are already bruised and that kind of thing. So I think with us we do have that higher quality, and it is because we are getting stuff fresh off the truck, so to speak.
And talking about getting stuff fresh off the truck and the prices, we are living in very economically challenging times. And when we think about what's happening south of the border, there is a lot more concern about what food prices are going to look like, what everything is going to look like, really, because with all these tariffs and trade wars, and it's a lot going on. But how does that impact the Good Food Market? Are we only selling and buying Canadian at the Good Food Market? Like, what's the what's the dynamic where that's concerned?
Yeah, and that's definitely a question we've seen come up already at our market as people are thinking like, oh, well, I want to buy Canadian because of the tariffs and all that. And that is, even before this, a question that we got sometimes, like, we want to buy local, is it from Ontario, that kind of thing. So the first thing that I'll say is it's tough for us in the position that we're in here in Ontario and as a market to only buy Canadian produce and to only sell Canadian produce for a couple of reasons. First is our climate. Obviously, we can't grow certain things in Canada, and also our seasons, even the things that we can grow in the summer are not things that are going to be growing in the winter, obviously. So we do have to import some things, and some of those things are coming from the US. Now, part of our problem as a small market is that we are getting, of course, a lot of our stuff from the Ontario Food Terminal, which is where, international imports are coming into. Since the 80s, as some people might know, with Canada signing on to NAFTA and the current iterations of that, since that time, Canada has really heavily tied its economy to the US, to the point where right now, and with the things happening, it's really hard to extract ourselves from that, and especially when it comes to food, and especially with the season that we're in right now. Ideally, what Canada would be doing, really, and this isn't something our market can do, this is something more that politicians can do, is diversifying who we trade with so that we aren't just fixed to the United States, because that's where this problem comes in, right? Because one way or another, Canadians are going to want, they're going to want oranges, they're going to want things like lettuce in the wintertime.
It's not even just so much a matter of want, but it's a matter of need, because we want people to have a holistic diet, like a diet that consists of all the
exactly.
food groups, and in order to access that, it will mean that you will have to do some level of import. So
all that means for our market is, like, if folks have the question of, well, are you going to be selling American produce? Unfortunately, we don't really have much of an option other than to have some of that on our price list, because that's the source for example, I'll give the example of oranges. The two places that usually oranges will come from is usually it's from California, or the alternatives that we sometimes see is South Africa, but most often it's California, right? So figuring out what that means for trade, that's not something our market can really do or has a choice in. We basically have to take what comes from the food terminal. So you will continue to probably see U.S. produce popping up on our price lists. What the prices are going to look like is going to be interesting. We're definitely going to try to cushion that blow if we do see a spike in prices. Over the next few weeks, I imagine we might even see a decrease in some prices, because food, like fruits and vegetables, are perishable, right? Mm-hmm. So there are certain things that have already crossed the border that suppliers are going to be wanting to get rid of. So we might see a little bit of a dip in price, but as far as longer term, it's very possible that we will see a spike in prices at our market. And our power to diversify our own source of food or produce is limited as a small market, but we will be trying to find ways to cushion that blow so that hopefully students won't see that spike at our market. So that's something that we can look at, is like, okay, if we're seeing those prices go up as far as what we're paying, what can we do to keep that down? Because again, exactly. Because for us, it's all about affordability, and what Trump or whoever else decides to do is, at the end of the day, we still need to feed our community, right? So,
And that's the thing about this. In the grand scheme of things, the people that are affected most are the everyday people, us students, people who work at GBC, people who just interface with our community here at GBC. We're the ones that are most affected in situations like these. So as a student, I'd like to speak on the student body's behalf and say thank you for making the effort to keep the prices low and affordable and give us the options of having healthy food that's accessible and easily accessible to us.
Yeah, and I would say too, if students are thinking about like, well, what can I do? Can I advocate, or can I talk to my local MP or MPP or whoever? Because of course everyone's seeing in the newspapers like people trying to get Trump to reverse his decision, this, that, the other thing. I think a good thing for people to advocate to their representatives in Parliament or at Queen's Park is encouraging them to find a wider range of trading partners, right? Because at the end of the day, longer term, that will be more secure for us. And again, as you said, it's the people on the ground who are hurt most by these international border spats.
And we did an episode not long ago about, elections that were coming up in Ontario. So I think if you didn't listen to that episode, you can go back. I mean, even though it's past the election now, again, what you just said just reiterates how important it is for people to use their power that they have to help influence how decisions affect them in the long run. So thank you for that. So how can students get involved outside of lobbying their political representatives?
Get involved at the market?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So students can get involved in a few ways. So of course you can come join us every Thursday, see what we've got going on, join our mailing list, as I said. We also occasionally hire, because we do try to keep a team of student employees, because I certainly cannot run it all by myself. So folks can keep an eye on GB Careers for when there are postings. And we definitely do get a lot of interest when we do post. And then occasionally, well, depending on the semester, sometimes there might be placement opportunities, but again, depends semester to semester on our staffing levels and that kind of thing. So those are some ways that folks can get involved. We also, I should probably mention, have a supper club program.
Yes,
so that is another way. That is another program that folks can join, and that is totally free. So every month, and our next one should be next week, March 13th. So folks can sign up on a registration form to our mailing list, or you can zap the QR code to mail us about it as well. Usually we take about 12 or so students. We cook a meal together. It usually consists of a soup, a salad, a main course, and a dessert. And we try all sorts of courses. Yes, okay. We do courses. And usually people end up very, very full. And so they can take stuff home as well. And we have take-home containers, so you can bring your leftovers home to eat the next day as well. Usually we try to stick to recipes. We try to do a wide range of recipes, but also recipes that aren't too expensive for you to try at home. But yeah, it's usually good fun from a social perspective, I think, is one of the biggest benefits, because even if you're someone who you love to cook and you already know a million recipes, it's also nice to meet other students, or even bring your classmates or your friends, and you can do that together.
Share.
Exactly, yeah. So
build community.
Exactly, yeah. So it's great from a social perspective, I would say.
Okay. Thank you, Torsten. Is there anything that you want to leave the listeners with?
I think we've probably gone over everything, but yeah, hopefully we'll see you at the market on Thursdays.
See you at the market.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks again, Huskies, for coming back for another great episode. And what I believe is, dare I say it, our final adventure for the semester. I didn't say final episode. Hold your Huskies. I will see you right here next week, same time, same place. And if you see me at the Good Food Market, please say hello, because you know where I'll be every Thursday. So until next week, stay safe, enjoy the warmth that's coming, and walk good.